Hello everyone, Divvy here, back again to review The Walking Dead, and this time it is for the mid-season penultimate episode. Penultimate is referred to the episode that is right before the final one, and because we got the mid-season finale coming up, this is the mid-season penultimate episode, leading up to what I was guessing all along, an epic showdown between the police officers of the hospital, known as Slaptown, and the people of the church, also known as the Cleansers, that is Rick's group. But before we get into all that, setup. Yeah, it's kind of funny that this episode was set to air during the same weekend that The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 comes out. Because if you guys have seen my review of Mockingjay, Part 1 that is, I mentioned in that review that splitting up these novels into the two-part movies, most of the time it's going to be, Part 1's going to be all the setup, all the character developments, much like with Mockingjay. Like I said in that review, go check it out if you haven't, spoiler free. And then Part 2 is going to be where all the action and the final battle is going to take place. And that's what I feel is happening so far with these final two episodes of the first half of the fifth season. And it was still a good episode. There was still an awful lot of good material here to really keep us invested in these characters. Had a couple of problems, a couple of issues. One that plagued this recent episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the last one. And one of my little nitpicks with that last episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. was that it even though everything that they were tackling was done really well, just like this episode, they were just tackling a little too much. There was too much stuff going on that some of it got lost in the mix and could have been saved for either the next episode or just future episodes. And being that the mid-season finale is coming out for Walking Dead, I kind of understood somewhat that they needed to put certain things in this episode to kind of wrap them up or at least get them moving so that then they can lead up to somewhere in next week's mid-season finale. And to me, that particular subplot in this episode that I felt could have been saved for at least the next episode, the mid-season finale, even though, again, it was still very good, was everything with Glenn, Maggie, Ford, Rosita, and Tara. All the stuff with them was good. I liked seeing Glenn and those two girls bond, seeing a glimmer of hope, finding food, finding these things to keep them preoccupied. I mean, a yo-yo. A fucking yo-yo. I mean, screw the PlayStation 4. I'm getting a yo-yo for Black Friday. And despite having a limited amount of screen time, the stuff with Abraham was really good too. He was genuinely scary. Not only in his comatose state, where he was just not responding to anybody after figuring out the very harsh truth about Eugene, but that brief moment where he was about to be set off by Rosita, he was genuinely intimidating. And it was cool to see his stuff get wrapped up by the end of the episode, where he finally loosened up by after hearing out Maggie's words. But I wish that it could have been something nicer to fully explore and take the time to see Ford's build up to finally loosening up and taking that sip of water in the next episode, where he probably could have had a little bit more time. But because I'm guessing the writers have this pre-decided destination to take our characters to in the finale, then I guess they had to put that stuff in this episode. But it was still cool, and I liked that little fake out at the end of that whole story of hearing a growling noise only to find out it was just Eugene saying hello. I thought that was pretty interesting and a nice way to end that little part of that part of the story. But the main focus of this episode was Rick's plan to get Beth and Carol out of Slaptown. And Rick, once again, showing how much he has changed. His initial plan is to just go in, not necessarily guns blazing, because he's still smart. He's changed, but he's still smart. So he's not going to just go in there and have bullets fly all over the place. No, on the contrary, he wants to do this silently, but he still wants to take out everybody and not take any half measures. But in the midst of all of this, Tyrese brings up the plan to simply just capture 2 police officers and offer a trade. Therefore, nobody has to get hurt, not from their side or theirs. And surprisingly, his plan gets upvoted by Daryl, out of all people, therefore solidifying how he has changed. And Rick, knowing that these are the 2 big power players that he kind of needs on his side, or at least be on their side so that they can work together, decides to take this to go with this plan rather than his. But it's kind of interesting how he wanted to kind of cleanse himself after what he couldn't do to Terminus. So with the help of Noah, they managed to capture not just 2 but 3 police officers, because one of them was apprehended by Daryl in what this scene, man. I mean, they just love to tease. We know that they're not going to do it, but I love how we've literally gotten to a point where they're gonna actually almost literally put Daryl's head in the mouth of a walker just like to take photos, like, hey, because in that scene where they're surrounded by all those walkers, which again bringing us new walkers to look at, I love that even though they weren't terribly different because we've seen variations of these kind of walkers. I like how they were all charred amongst the asphalt in the road there, but that scene where they literally have Daryl almost putting his fingers into a walker's mouth, I can just envision all of the fangirls just screaming at the top of their lungs, just going, oh my god, no, don't do it. Oh god. And part of me is like, come on, if you guys are not gonna do it, then don't tease. But the other part of me just wishes I could have seen some of their reaction. In fact, I'm gonna probably go on YouTube right now after I'm done with this video and look up any reactions, if there are any, to that scene and seeing how many girls were just freaking the fuck out. But I'll admit, it led to a really cool scorpion-like decapitation by Daryl, pulling that head right out of the spine and just hitting the other guy with it. Kinda wish the dude would have died. I mean, he called Rick an asshole, but like Daryl argued, 3 is better than 2. So they hold the 3 police officers hostage in a way and try to think about what their next move is going to be, because, you know, Rick didn't really necessarily think this far ahead, so he's consulting with Tyrese, who tries his best to get Sasha out of her funk after the death of Bob. And I love that scene where even his voice changes. He's just like, girl, you gotta get over it. He didn't do the head thing, but in a way, it's almost like, come on, I'm here to help you. Let's just do this because we really need you. We know you're a capable person to take care of whatever needs to be done in this type of world. We kind of need you to snap out of it because we've done this so many times before with Tyrese, with Rick. So Tyrese, knowing that he's been there, like he stated earlier in the episode, he's like, come on, yeah, I've been there. We can do this together. Let's not snap out of it. So it was nice to see that Sasha also got her own opportunity to sort of get over herself by helping somebody else get over herself. And that other person is one of the police officers, played by Agent Sitwell. I don't know the actor's name, but that's Sitwell from Captain America the Winter Soldier in a couple of episodes of last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is funny that I mentioned S.H.I.E.L.D. earlier in this review. But he brings up the story about how he actually saw one of his partners out there who has turned, and it consults to Sasha of putting him down because he's so close, only to be led to a betrayal by the bastard, because he genuinely got me. I was there, hook, line, and sinker, just along with Sasha, because I thought it was kind of believable that this, like Noah said, was one of the good guys, because in any kind of environment like Slaptown, there's going to be people who are good, but they're going to be manipulated into doing things for the person who's in charge, which in this case is Dawn. So him coming across as sentimental, I was believing it. So to have him betray Sasha, knocking her out, and escaping, that kind of hurt. It was a gut punch. And speaking of Officer Dawn, let's go ahead and talk about Beth and her few scenes with Slaptown in this episode, which are were mainly there just to have her stabilize Carol, because everyone's gonna know what's happening with Carol. Is she alright? So those scenes were mainly there for that sole purpose, to make sure that she survives by having Beth help her out. However, how she manages to do that was kind of weird. First of all, that scene where the patient fakes to be like coughing because he's, at first I thought he was gonna use the strawberries to show that, hey, I'm allergic to strawberries, so I need your help, like that. But apparently it was just some kind of payment by Beth to, hey, if you help me out, I'll get you some strawberries, because that's how you get your way around this world, people. Strawberries. You want to get into college? That's 17,000 strawberries. But I don't know. It just felt kind of Saturday morning cartoonish. I don't know, that whole device where the dude fakes him having a breathing problem so that Beth can get on by, get the medicine that she needs for Carol, and then walk away. And what made it even more cartoonish was that as soon as she walks away, the guy chooses to say, oh, I'm all better, in the most convenient way possible. So it makes me wonder, if I was one of those officers playing devil's advocate, I think I would put 2 and 2 together and notice that right when this girl passes by, he gets better. Hey, what do you know about that? But the other weird part about this whole subplot with Beth and Slaptown is that, out of nowhere, Dawn, who I was learning to hate, but at the same time kind of understand what she's talking about, contradicts her character and helps Beth. And of course, she kind of has that line of dialogue where she explains why she's doing it, because she can't let the other officers see, because she needs to keep them happy, just like she lets them have their way with some of the female patients there, because she needs to keep them happy, which, like I said, was a very good, healthy way to make me hate her, at the same time understanding with her, which is a recipe for a complex character. So to have her just say, hey, I'm gonna help you out, Beth, and all of a sudden turn into Mother Teresa, kind of went against her character. And even though I did have a problem with that, she wasn't necessarily the weakest part about this episode. The weakest subplot with the entire episode, being that it's jumbling so many, which in and of itself is one of the issues I had with it, is the whole thing with Carl and Michonne and Father Gabriel back at the church. First of all, Michonne, being one of the badasses of the show and one of the more interesting characters, especially after what they did with her back in, I believe, season 4, they just have her be on the sidelines here, which to me doesn't make sense, because you got Tyrese out there who still hasn't gone over the whole I can't kill no living person type deal, because we learned he didn't kill that guy that he said he did. So it would have made sense to have Tyrese take care of the baby and Michonne goes out there, being that she knows what she's doing. So I just felt like they put their best player on the sidelines, quite literally. And Carl doesn't have anything to do there. She doesn't have anything to do there. And the only interesting part was a tiny detail that I noticed with Father Gabriel, who does something kind of stupid. He escapes the church and wanders off doing God knows what. I mean, maybe in the next episode he'll explain what he was doing out there when he gets found by Michonne or Carl, but what the hell is he doing out there? Now, the interesting thing about him, however, was that at first I thought he was lying when he was scrubbing the blood from inside the church. It made me think that, oh, something happened inside and not on the outside, like he was telling Rick in that episode where he was confessing. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But then that first conversation he has with Carl at the beginning where he lets him choose his weapon, that reminded me, oh yeah, that's where the cannibals got killed, so that's where the blood is from. Okay. That interesting detail disappeared in an instance, but then it got brought back by something that I noticed, and I'm hoping some of you guys noticed too. And that is that when he's using the machete to escape from underneath the church, not only does he know where it's going to lead, but he comes out of the same wall where the phrase, "you'll burn for this," is written. So that makes me wonder, was he the one who wrote that? Maybe he's the one who kind of got locked out or got locked inside of the church against his will, managed to escape through the floor of that room and ran from underneath the church and inscribed that on the wall to whoever locked him inside. That's an interesting thing to go with, and I'm hoping they flesh it out. I'm hoping that that's why they put the camera there, only to pan down and have him escape. Otherwise, it's going to end up being a wasted opportunity to make that character interesting again and not completely stupid. Although, much like with the scene with Daryl where they were teasing him getting bitten, I did like seeing Father Gabriel finally move in the right direction to fend for himself by taking the walker and actually body slamming it down on that pole. That was actually pretty cool. Only to put a convenient cross around her neck, thus not having him kill or put her down. I was like, okay, come on, guys. Really? But despite the issues of jumbling all these different stories and some of the issues within those stories, and trust me, there were just a couple, I still thought that this was a rather solid episode and definitely has me pumped for the mid-season finale. So I give episode 8, I almost lost track there. Oh man, so many shows. But in due time, we're going to have a slowdown, considering that Walking Dead is wrapping up its first half of the 5th season. So I give this episode Crossed a solid 8 out of 10, and hopefully the finale pays off in a big way. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode, and I'll see you guys next week with the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead. See you there.